Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. And today we are continuing our Purva Praksha tradition. I think you are all loving it because you all are seeing scientifically how to study, how to evaluate, especially Vedic narratives. And Jato Mat Tato Mat means whatever one thinks is the right way is not Vedic conclusion. Okay, Vedas are very directed at one place. So Sat means truth, and Logos means a study or a science. Sattology means a study of science or study of truth. Science, study of science of truth, or science of truth, science, study of truth. Mythology is the exact antonym, study of myth. And I will challenge most of you. Do you ever call yourself that you are a follower of myth? You'll never say that, right? In your real life also. So why to say that for Ramayana Mahabharat? Why to stay that for Vedic literature? It's a big shamefulness on our part to call it a myth because it's experiential. So I have a great friend, Rishi Muni, what do you call it, the modern sage. Sages can live at home, they have a family, and they do tapasya by doing research. So without delay, let us welcome Sri Nilesh Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya ji.
Namaskar. I always see so many books behind you, and the notepads, stick pads, the posters, like the full, slide by slide analysis you do before you present. So, what is the reason behind that? Before we start the session,
The reason is I'm working on many things. In fact, everything you are seeing in the back has nothing to do with our talk today. The Ram Navami, the celebration of Rama's birth is coming, and I'm giving series of talks at multiple places in India, but also around the world. So I have, if you see that yellow colored book, that is Gita Press Valmiki Ramayana. So that is there as a quick reference when I'm preparing for specific talks. It's there. Glad, in fact, all the viewers and you, Aditya ji, don't get to see what's there on the table, where I'm speaking. There are all books and different notes. I also always keep a very small notepad next to me because while I'm talking to someone, like even on our call, something interesting would come up. Same thing with when I'm talking to someone on the phone, and just to make sure that I don't forget. With my gray hair, I forget things if I don't write it down right away. So that's why this is the setup. In fact, everyone in the family considers this as a total mess, which is true. I'm guilty as charged. I call it a creative mess. So that's the answer.
yeah, that's a nice way of putting it, so that others do the work for you, cleaning up.
Yeah, no one does that. No, I have to do it. And actually, I like it the way it is, because although it looks very messy there, I know exactly where to find my book, the one I'm working on.
Yeah, the vision is there. And my book on Ramayana is coming out before Ram Navami.
This Ram Navami, very
Yes.
good. Okay, so looking forward to it.
So thank you. And in that I have used many of your methodologies which I learned in Puru Paksha.
Oh, very good.
So you have been my teacher on that. So it's a great because you set a path for many people, that how to logically break it down, and faith and tradition and science combination makes it very convincing read for other people. Because as I'm seeing Ramayana now very closely, there are so many things mentioned. There's so many instructions, discussions, and the beauty is not in the summary. Beauty is in the details. One shloka, you can spend hours on it.
Correct. And so now that you're reading Ramayana again related to your book, and now that in between you and me have talked so much about the Ramayana evidence, Ramayana astronomy evidence. Now, every time you read it, you say, oh, there it is. There it is, evidence for Nilesh or something like this, which rightfully so, which you would have not noticed it even before. Yes. And that happens to me too. Like there is some interesting thing I'm working on with another team. This is related to Ramayana, like presenting Ramayana from a Ravana's perspective. Very interesting project. I'll not reveal the details right now because they are not all clear right now. But what is interesting is, so as that particular project is going ahead, the other members of the team sometime will call me. In fact, there was a call just before this, and I have to call him now. His morning in India, and so certain things, for example, he was asking like what type of clothes Ramayana people were wearing, and not just Ramayana people in general, but say what Rama might be wearing, what Sita might be wearing, versus what the Vanaras might be wearing, and Ravan might be wearing, and are there any differences? And what is interesting is, of course, while reading through Ramayana, you do come across those once in a while. That's not the main intent of Valmiki Ramayana. However, now that he asked me that question, and when I read it, I say, okay, here is the reference, I can give it to him. Like, Sita wearing wool color, but before she wears these cloth made out of the tree bark, she is already before wearing silk saris, so now we know that they were wearing silk, they were using cloth made out of tree bark, but you don't even think of it until somebody asks you that question. So one important thing, and that is true for Purva Paksha also, is like, why do you select a certain researcher? The reasons can be many, okay, but you select a certain researcher because in some specific context it's very important. It may not be necessarily the quality of a work, and sometimes it's the quality of the work. That's what I hope usually. But sometimes it is the perceived importance of that researcher in academia, in society, and research circles. And even when the work is very lousy, we still have to do a Purva Paksha. Because what is that verse? Yadyat acharate sreshtam. Sometimes a perceived greatness of somebody, therefore people think whatever he or she is saying must be true. And we have to break that myth also. Okay, break that myth and bring people to Sat. Everyone has to investigate or take with a Shraddha. That is another route. Sometimes you can put a Shraddha in the wrong person. That's possible. But even then, sometimes it may just work for you. If it's not that important to you, important for you, whatever that is being discussed, like a capital of, say, Azerbaijan, something like this. Okay, somebody may say the wrong name, but so what? Unless you are traveling there, it wouldn't matter much. Okay, so in that case, you can just take it on the Shraddha and save time. But let's get into our part 3.
One thing I'll add here. One thing just add here. Since you quoted as Sita, actually I found the shloka and everything, which I captured in my book. That she was always Sunehri sari, on top of it Valkal Vastra.
Yes. And in the Vanvas also you are saying.
In the Vanvas, yes. Because at Chitrakoot also mentioned Sharbhanga Rishi, Chitrakoot, and then Sutikshana Rishi, and then Kashyap.
Oh, interesting. Then, see, I have missed it, I will admit. So just like you mentioned Atharva Veda reference, with the
Rishishringa, the marriage of Rishishringa, for the Putreshti Yagya.
Correct.
Yes, all these references are there. And also, as I was researching this, I can say boldly, Bhagwan Ram never ate meat. And this is now you have to see the enemy's perspective. Khara confirms it. These are the vegetarian eating people. They're very weak. Aaj bhi ye chalta hai. Because many people, they say that vegetarians are weak. So the Rakshas has the same mindset also. These are the vegetarian, they live on Kandamul, because any ashram they went, their favorite food was offered to them, which was made of Anna, Kandamul. Only one place there is a mention of Chanayas, which is the Guda. Guda ko mas, like which pulp is called mas in Sanskrit, pulp. But that is not meat. That is Gajakand. The fruit is Gajakand, which has a black skin, and many people in India, especially in the Madhya Pradesh, Satana district area, will find that fruit. I found that fruit also.
Okay.
And but anyway, we'll get on to the show. And
right. And that's a different subject. I mean, that's something. Glad you are discussing it. I mean, there are people are discussing this for a long time. I have actually written a blog on it. It's not just my blog. Actually, I saw a discussion somewhere. And I just copied it, but I have verified. But that's again a different subject. But let's get into why we even do a purvapaksha of a specific claim. Sometime because the claim is worthy of an investigation, because we learn a lot, and other times it's not so much worthy of investigation from a technical or scientific or logical point of view, but because of the perceived authority. And in this case, what I would say is a perceived authority to a large extent. Like Professor Iyengar has done significant good work in many places, and I'm very appreciative of it. But and we will see, no, it's not on my today's slide there, but I repeatedly bring this point back, like why people make error. Now that's, to err is human, I mean, we know that. And so that's acceptable. I mean, I make many mistakes, errors when I do research, and I correct them. And I said, well, I don't know what I was thinking, or this is the reason I was thinking like this, but that's wrong. And here is my better version of it. So let me start sharing, and let's see if we can at least summarize that one particular paper that that we were discussing in part 1 and 2. So okay, so consider this as the part 3, critiquing the 1478 BCE claim of Professor R N Iyengar. He has claimed that the year of the Mahabharat war is 1478 BCE. I am asserting that it is a very unscientific and illogical claim, and this is part 3. Quickly, this is Professor R N Iyengar. He has done a lot of detailed work in the Indology field. His background is from seismology, civil engineering. Professor at a very prestigious, was a professor at very prestigious institute in India. That is where he acquired his PhD. That is where he worked as a professor. Now also he's 77-year-old and still very active and very busy in doing a lot of research or translations and stuff like that. The specific paper that we're discussing is his internal consistency of eclipses and planetary positions in Mahabharat. Okay, so last time we did discuss planetary positions. We will quickly go through just a summary of it, quickly talk about eclipses, and then talk about some additional problems that we will discuss, maybe not today, but definitely discuss in part, that based on the additional claims of Professor R N Iyengar related to Mahabharata observations. Quickly, his date falls into this particular bucket on our entire scene, where the claims for the year of Mahabharat war run from 400 CE all the way to 7300 BCE. Last time, let me just make sure. Yeah, okay, that's correct. Let me see. Okay, yeah, I got the right slides. Okay, I was just wondering if I got the wrong slide. Okay, so last time what he said, and I actually showed it to you, but Professor Iyengar ji discussed 7 different sets of planetary observations. He called it PP1, PP2, PP3, all the way to PP7. And then he claimed that although planetary positions set number 4, 5, 6, 7 have some variations, therefore we may not take it seriously. Well, that is wrong. There are variations everywhere in a whole Mahabharata. Anyone has to simply do is in your library, guys, those of you who are listening from the universities, just go to your library. I know because of COVID, sometimes the access is kind of restricted, but go to the section in the library that, where the book number coding starts with BL, like, okay, so it's like Boston and Los Angeles, BL, okay? And that section typically like 900 to like say 1200, something like that. That section is essentially the Indian books, the Indology, ancient Indian narratives books. And go there, you'll definitely find any decent library in the American university system will have the full edition of Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute's critical edition of Mahabharata. And just pick up any book, any of those 18 books, or actually more than 18 books, because sometimes they are multiple volumes. Open any random page in the middle, and you will see there is a shlok at the top, the verse at the top, and any variations in it are listed at the bottom. So these variations exist for all the verses, everything. So the claim of Professor Iyengar that there are variations in the planetary position sets 4, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, but they are not there in 1, 2, 3 is not correct. So that argument is extremely flawed argument and therefore dismissed. But even where he claims that this position 1, 2, and 3 agree with 1478 is decisively false. Well, let's look at the position number 1. And I did this last time. I'm just going to go fast through it. Quick translation. I will not read those. So what it is saying is that Saturn is afflicting Nakshatra Rohini, Aldebaran, okay, and the another planet is doing something to Chitra, and Mars is, in this particular verse, it says Mars is going retrograde for his translation, not my translation, for his translation near Jeshta Anuradha. Now, so he's saying this position is great, and he claims that this agrees with 1478. Guys, here is the news. I mean, anyone can go and check this. The Mars does go retrograde near Magha in the year 1478 plus minus say 1 year, but that is not what he's claiming. Okay, funny enough, but he cannot show Mars going retrograde by his own translation, by his own admission near Jeshta Anuradha. So he admits it, but he doesn't see any problem with it. So he admits that whatever is claimed in Mahabharata does not match for 1478 BCE, right from these planetary positions set 1, but he does not see that as a problem for his date. Something that Mahabharata says he cannot show to be true for 1478. Well, let's look at the first two verses. Prajapatyam hi nakshatram grahastikshna mahadyuti shanaischara pidayati pidayan pranikodikam. Simply, Saturn is afflicting Nakshatra Rohini. This second graph here, you can see Nakshatra Rohini here. The Saturn is like a 3 nakshatras away, and then Jupiter is like 4, 5, 6 nakshatras away. And last time I discussed, from any astronomy perspective, we don't know why that can be seen as Saturn afflicting Rohini. And it has to be consistent because Saturn has some close to 4, 5 references in Mahabharata. He's only talking of one reference, and even that is not matching. Same thing for Jupiter. Jupiter also has close to 4 or 5 references related to Jupiter in the Mahabharata text. He's pulling only one of them, and even that is not matching. So I'm not sure what is impressing him about this planetary evidence and the year 1478. Okay, just that's why I'm stating the position: Saturn near Bharani, Jupiter near Uttara Bhadrapad. Let's go next. Then he's repeating that reference. Saturn is staying near Rohini or afflicting. Staying is his translation, guys, and that's a wrong translation. Okay. Rohinim Pida Yatnesha Stito Raja Shanishchara. The translation would be Rohini is the Saturn is afflicting Rohini. Saturn is torturing Rohini. Now, in principle, you can show Saturn near Rohini and therefore claim that Saturn is afflicting. That's fine. But the translation itself is not that Saturn is staying near Rohini. It's very important. Okay. Very, very critical, because that is the same description that Pida Yannesha is what Jupiter is doing to Rohini, is what Sun and Moon are doing together to Rohini. And they, if you look at the positions, they cannot do it by being near Rohini. That's just not possible. Okay, so that's also not true. And the last one that he quotes twice from Bhishma Parva, but also from Udyog Parva, that some planet is afflicting Chitra. It is actually the same Mars that is afflicting Chitra, but he doesn't capture that. He thinks it's some other planet. Now, people can have different interpretations. I'm okay with that. I mean, sometimes there can be very wrong interpretations, just like I said, Saturn staying near Rohini. But if anyone, just as a metaphor, I'll say, if you're driving, and I don't expect anyone of you to do that, you shouldn't do it for safety reasons. But if you're driving and through one red signal, actually you look around, nobody's there, you just drive through it. Another red signal, you drive through it. This is not a good thing, but you keep on going through it. What is assured, it's just a matter of time that they're going to be caught, or they're going to run into a severe injury or accident or so on. That's exactly what happens. You cannot just claim that Pida Yanesho means, instead of affliction or torturing, just of being close to that planet or being close to that nakshatra, and think you will able to explain all the evidence of Mahabharata. You will not able to do it. That is not scientific. You have to have a consistency. So on planetary position 1, 2, and 3, the 1478 fails decisively in an extremely disastrous fashion. Not a single planetary position out of 35 plus from the Mahabharata text match for the claim of 1478. So I am at loss to understand on the strength of exactly what evidence and what objective testing Professor R N Iyengar is claiming 1478 BCE as the year of Mahabharata war. Okay, but more fun. Okay, this is enough fun, so I want to go fast through this. Let's briefly look at the claims of eclipses by Professor R N Iyengar. Remember the title, Eclipses and Planetary Position. So planetary position is a disaster. Frankly, as a researcher, I would not even go further. The reason I would not even bother to look at the eclipses, because remember, eclipse is a near Earth phenomenon. Eclipse is between what? Earth, moon, those are the two key things, and of course the sun. Okay, but the Earth, moon is the closest body to the Earth. It's a truly near Earth phenomenon. Even the planets also we consider near Earth phenomenon. But if you look at thousands of years, the eclipses are dime a dozen. There are at least two eclipses every year. Now, whether you will able to see it from a specific location is a different issue. But there are two eclipses. So when you go for 1,000 years, suddenly you are looking at 2,000 eclipses. And if you go for 5,000 years, you're looking at 10,000 plus eclipses. It's not such a rare thing as much as people may think. That is one. And also, there is such a huge challenge in finding the accurate timing, accurate nature of eclipse once you go beyond, say, 2,000 years. Okay. You can find that the eclipse did occur. Okay, but after that, what kind of eclipse, when exactly it happened, and from which location it could be seen, a lot of error enters the picture. But let's see what he has to say. Again, there is a lot of fun. This is a quick summary of all the evidence that is available. And lo and behold, so far, now at the end of today's session, I will show you how he tries to consider some evidence from the blue side. Now, you cannot ignore the blue and hope to get the correct timing of the Mahabharata war. Just as a metaphor again, if you are looking for Chicago in United States of America, you better be in United States of America before you start searching for Chicago. There is no point you being somewhere in Europe or somewhere in India or somewhere in China looking for Chicago. Now, there might be another place called Chicago, but it won't be the famous Chicago in Illinois, Midwest of United States that we are referring to. That's why every evidence in the blue must be addressed first before anyone can come to the evidence in the orange. Professor Iyengar, sorry, I said HR. Professor Iyengar has not done that. He has not even touched, at least until now, in that whole paper, the evidence in the blue. But look what he has even done on the orange side. So this is the evidence. Broadly speaking, that's how we can classify. But what has he removed? He has not looked into Arundhati Vasishtha observation. He has not looked into the Bhishma Nirvana evidence. He has not looked into the seasons. He has not looked into the comets from the Mahabharata, not looked at the chronology narration, not looked at the calendrical constraints, not looked at the phases and positions of the moon. So his claim really came down to two sets, as the title of his paper says, planetary positions and eclipses. Guess what? I just showed it to you that out of 35 plus specific planetary observations, planetary evidence, not even a single description matches for 1478. Okay, so planetary motions are gone. So let's see what we have got on the eclipses. He quotes one reference. He says, Chandra Surya Vubhav Grasto Ekamase Trayodashim. There is one reference in Mahabharat where it says, within the 13 days period or on Trayodashi, okay, this, the lunar tithi, the Surya and Chandra, that is moon and sun, had eclipsed, okay, on the day of a Trayodashi. Typically, it happens on the Amavasya if it's the solar eclipse. If it's a lunar eclipse, happens on the full moon day. There is this reference that as if it happened on the 13th day, okay, instead of a 15th day. Now, this has been interpreted by different researchers in 10 different ways, but so what is his point? Actually, he doesn't make a point. I'll come to that point, the point he wants to make. And that is also a disaster. Then he quotes something very interesting. Then he quotes something from the last day of the war. Okay, Rahuscha Agrasad Adityam Aparvani Vishampate. Okay, and then that is like as if there is some kind of eclipse, either lunar or solar eclipse, on the last day of the Mahabharat war. Now the reference exists. Okay, now he said, so he translates, Rahu caught up the sun at an odd time. I will not get into the translation, for example, because that odd time is also not correct. But let's not fight on the translation. If he takes it as an odd time, he has a responsibility to show how that matches. He's translating a parvani as an odd time. Now, sometimes it can mean an odd time, but a parvani usually is used in the sense because anytime the eclipse occurred around the globe, in almost all cultures, it was seen as a bad thing. Okay. And so it was not like considered an auspicious thing. And therefore, the word aparvani is used in that sense. You will find, I have written a separate blog on this, that every time almost practically eclipse happens, in the eclipse description comes in the Ramayana, definitely Mahabharat, but also in Ramayana, it is the word aparvani comes. Now, you have to understand, every time the eclipse is not happening at the wrong time or at an odd time. Okay, eclipse will happen when the astronomy situation is conducive. Anyways, so guys, I mean, see this. I mean, this is not about only Professor Iyengar. Majority of the researchers in Mahabharata and this area, what they will do is, instead of having a focused discussion on what really matters, they will just discuss and deliberately create chaos, deliberately create tangent, so that ordinary person is utterly confused. Even when it is not confusing. I mean, I'm guilty. Like people will say, Nilesh, your book is extremely tough to read. Well, it is, okay? Because this subject is just not easy. I mean, it's not very complicated, but there has to be some groundwork, some pre-work that one has to do before they can start understanding it. One has to read multiple times. But to make it worse, many researchers just deliberately go on a tangent and confuse the hell out of a reader. Okay, I see that time and time again. Okay, so then he says, the earth shook along with trees and forest, fine. All the editions carry this verse, okay? However, this event is not credible as an eclipse. Okay, now I'm not saying there is eclipse on the last day of the war, certainly not for my day. But my point is, he just writes that statement. Therefore, however, this event is not credible as an eclipse. I don't understand exactly why. My point is, this can be eclipse. This cannot be eclipse. This may be eclipse, may not be eclipse. If some researcher takes this as an eclipse, then he or she has to do a show an eclipse for his or her last day of his or her claim. That's all, a minimum that is expected in a scientific experiment, in a scientific investigation, in a logical investigation. So I don't understand why he says, therefore, this is not a credible, but let's move on. He says, this follows from the previous statements in Bhishma Parva that the 18th day of the war started the day next to a Kartika full moon. What a blunder. So now what he's doing, this last statement he's saying about the first day of the Mahabharat war, he's saying, based on this statement, the one at the top, like the Chandra, Surya, Ubhav, Dono came and eclipsed on the 13th day. He's saying based on that, it follows that the 18th day of the war, so 18-day war rather, the first day of the war started day next to a Kartika full moon. Now, how confusing language is this? First thing, Kartika full moon is wrong. I'll tell you why. But how confusing is this? Because he's saying the started on the day next to Kartika full moon. Did it start one day before Kartika full moon? Did it start one day after Kartika full moon? That should have been specified. Now, why Kartika full moon is wrong? Okay, so he has assumed the day just next to Kartika full moon as his first day of the war. That will be a disaster because some 30 plus descriptions of the Mahabharata text, the phases and positions of the moon, will decisively falsify this statement. But there is something one more that actually he has claimed. It is here. In the Bhishma Parva, that is second adhyay, the verse comes, Alaksha Prabhayahina Purnimasi cha Kartikim Chandrodbhut Agni Varnascha Padma Varne Navastale. Okay, he says this is a poetic reference to Kartika full moon becoming invisible and devoid of light, but turning fiery in the lotus colored sky. Okay, he thinks it's not that this is necessarily an eclipse. I agree with him. I agree with him only to this extent. So this particular verse, some people will take it, some researchers, and just keep on insisting, oh, come on, this is a lunar eclipse. And Professor Iyengar is saying that's not necessarily so. I am in agreement with Professor R N Iyengar. However, I'm also saying that if somebody shows a lunar eclipse on the day of Kartiki full moon for his or her claimed year of the Mahabharat war, and therefore that person uses this particular verse, Bhishma 2.23, as a corroborative evidence in support of that lunar eclipse happening on the Kartik full moon, I am in agreement with it. The person is very much justified in using this reference as in support for the lunar eclipse happening on the Kartik full moon. However, if somebody cannot show a lunar eclipse on the Kartika full moon for his or her date, then one cannot simply say, but how do you explain this? So to that extent, Professor R N Iyengar is correct, and I'm in complete agreement with him, which is to say it is not clear from the above descriptions whether an eclipse is meant or just an optical anomaly. For example, what is shown here is that the full moon of Kartika, okay, it looked like a Padma Varna, like it had the color of a lotus, okay, and Agni Varna. Now, I'll tell you this, if you are observing the sky, especially when the moon, the timing is around the full moon. So let's say full moon is just rising and sun is setting. That's how the scene would be. Actually, even though when there is no eclipse, sometimes depending on the situation in the sky and reflection and all that, you can see the full moon to be like a coppery red or fiery red. Okay, and I have many pictures of that, at least few pictures of that. The same thing can happen when sun is rising and moon is setting near that full moon day. You can find it, and therefore, to that extent, Professor Iyengar is correct. It's justified in saying that that can happen. Having said that, if somebody claims a eclipse and they can show it for their date and they use this as a supporting evidence, we should able to give them a credit for it. Okay, all right. Now, so what is the verdict on the eclipses? He discusses some eclipses, and then it's a long paper, 30 plus pages. Please read it. Then he cannot show these eclipses happening in 1478. So now he puts forward, he in a baseball speak, he throws a curve. Okay, now he says maybe these descriptions of the eclipses that are described in the War Parva, the sections of the war descriptions, maybe did not happen during the war, but they happened some 10, 15 years before the war. Now, I don't see the logic of it. Guys, those of you who are watching, if you see the logic of it, feel free to share in the comments of the YouTube comments, or feel free to share that with Professor R N Iyengar. You can share it with me, but unless there is a very solid, logical, consistent scientific acumen, I'm not really interested. You can make such predictions, you can make such assumptions, but you have to still explain why are you making those assumptions. I would again encourage people to read his paper in the original to see what a mess it is. But the trouble is not over. Okay, so there is a more trouble ahead, and I'll quickly introduce to that, and then we can stop for today. Now, remember, I said the evidence that was shown in the blue, which is to say that evidence allows you to arrive at your answer, in this case, the year of Mahabharat war, in an approximate fashion as an interval. And so if you ignore that evidence, you might start searching for it in a completely wrong place. It's like looking for Chicago in South Africa or looking for Chicago in India. Okay, so therefore we have to first define where should we search for it, like say North America. Okay, so he has ignored those observations into that paper. Then later on, he wrote another paper that I'm going to share with you because it also has the implications for the dating of Mahabharat war. He's very cocksure that he's convinced of that 1478 and he's confident that that is the date. So he is now pulling this observation. Okay, so let me show you. This is his second paper. And he has written many papers. I would encourage you to read those papers. Again, not for finding faults always. He has written many good papers and a lot of insights, especially if you are a researcher in this area, or if you are developing some interest in astronomy, and Indian ancient civilizations, you will love his work. Okay, whether you may agree with him or not, you will love his work. The second paper that I'm quoting here that has a connection with the Mahabharat is again from Indian Journal of History of Science. That first paper was published in 2003. This is published 3 years after, in 2006. The title of the paper is Some Celestial Observations Associated with Krishna Lore. So Krishna is one of the key characters of Mahabharata, as you know. Okay, and so some astronomy observations related to Krishna or therefore Mahabharat. Now, in this paper, he is also discussing some observations from outside Mahabharat, and therefore he's putting that in the context of Krishna lore and not just Mahabharat. Okay, we will only focus today, at least, on the observation that is from the Mahabharat, and that's something I have discussed. In fact, that is the observation I spent 15 plus years researching. Okay, so I came across this paper after I had demystified the whole mystery of Arundhati Vasishtha observation. Something very interesting. And in a way, I'm thankful that I did not end up reading this paper before. It would have confused me more. Okay, so I was lucky. All right, quickly what he's saying, just at the looking at the abstract here. The Mahabharata contains, beside eclipse and planetary positions. Now watch the language, because he's writing this as a sequel to that paper. So he's saying, hey, the planetary eclipse, that's all perfect for 1478. Okay, he's not saying it, but that's what he means. Okay, planetary positions, curious statements about a few stars. Besides eclipses and planetary position, there are some curious statements about few stars, and I'm so glad that he mentions it. In fact, Professor R N Iyengar is only one of the few, like out of 150 plus folks, and maybe many more, he is among the rare few who at least dares to recognize this observation, which is such a phenomenal observation. We have discussed it briefly in some of the episodes before, but we will do like a series of episodes on this one particular observation called Arundhati Vasishtha observation. You know, it's like a discovery in Newton's laws, or discovery of Einstein's special relativity or general relativity. That's the kind of importance this observation has, Arundhati Vasishtha observation has, when it comes to the dating of the Mahabharata, or when it comes to the amazing accuracy and precision of Indian astronomy, ancient Indian astronomy. Okay, so he says several Puranas that deal with the life and times of Krishna also describe observations of the sky in the form of eclipses and comets. Okay, those are good ones, especially comets. We may consider that in some future episode, not today. The present study investigates whether the possible time periods of these observations are harmonious with the date of 1493-1443 BCE, obtained previously for the eclipse and planetary positions stated in the Mahabharata. Guys, I hope you are paying attention. Just now I showed, based on the previous paper and its objective testing that none of the planetary observations of the Mahabharata text match for this 1443 to 1493 period. When it comes to eclipses, none of it matches to this 1443, especially 1478. Okay, so therefore he's now going backwards by 10-15 years to 1493. Okay, because he could not take the eclipse descriptions from the time of the Mahabharat war and match it for 1478, which is his claim for the year of Mahabharat war. Now he's saying maybe they are from some other time. I don't get the logic of it, neither based on a science nor based on the logic, but we will leave it at that. So essential, you see, this is now, it's very sad to see someone of a caliber of Professor R N Iyengar doing this. Okay, because I have a great respect for him. In Indology, there are many nuts, okay, and they are spread around the world in very famous universities of the world, including American universities, I'm sorry to say, okay. And this is the strategy they use, okay, very sad, very unfortunate. So they wrote one paper, which is flawed, by the way, if somebody objectively tests it, but to them it is not, right? And it got published in a peer-reviewed journal, right? So now they are referring to that paper, which is already published in a peer-reviewed journal, and saying, hey, you know, I established it there. It is given now. We cannot even question it. Now, that's not how science works, by the way, guys. But he's claiming we cannot question it. This additional evidence that I'm discussing in this paper, does it match with that particular time frame that he established in that paper? Guess what? First thing, it's an extremely flawed strategy, but that's why I said the more fun ahead. Actually, the observations we are going to look at, especially the Arundhati Vasishtha observation, it doesn't match for 1478, 1443, or 1493. But it's funny, in his mind, it perfectly matches. Okay, let's look at the fun. All right. Now, the fun is not over, guys, okay? It may not be over. And I'll say once your exams are done, definitely consider reading this paper in the original, okay? It will, of course, educate you, okay, enlighten you, but also in a positive way. And this one is also positive, but it will also tell you what not to do when writing a research paper. Something very interesting what he does. So the first line that you are seeing here, and, you know, at least to be fair, he's open to admit that that's what he has done. He's telling us where exactly he pulled the half portion of the shlok verse from, and he's taking another half portion from somewhere else. Just imagine you guys doing that, okay? So you are like studying any book, any subject, and one line you take it from page number 7 and another line from page number 82, and just combine together and try to make sense out of it. That's exactly what he is doing. Okay, so the verse that comes in Bhishma Parva, Adhyay 2, 31, is that famous observation that I spent 15 years on. It is famous because I spent 15 years. You can take it like that, Adityaji. So the verse goes like this. Ya Chaisha, this is actually the Arundhati's second line. The first line is Ya Chaisha Vishnuta Rajas Trailokya Sadhu Sammata. And then this first line comes as a second line there. Arundhati tathapesha tayapesha vasishta prushtata krita. That is Bhishma Parva 2.31. What Professor R N Iyengar does, I don't know why. I can tell you this, that based on the science that I understand, based on the science that most people understand, this cannot be done unless, of course, you give a good reasoning why that would be so. And logically also, it's extremely flawed. But still, let's enjoy the fun, okay? Then he pulls another half portion of a shlok, of a verse, from another chapter, another Adhyay 3, and a verse number 17, okay, another verse. And again, he takes a half portion. So, for example, there the verse goes, Dhruvam Prajvalitam Ghoram, I'm reading this second verse here. Dhruvam Prajvalitam Ghoram Apasavya Pravartate, and then it goes next line, Chitra Swatantare Chaiva Dishtita Parushagraha. And then it goes on and on. This 3.17 is a description of a Mars. Has nothing to do with Arundhati, nothing to do with Vasishta, nothing to do with a pole star. But guess what? He is translating that Dhruva in this case, it means, and I'll show you the translation. In this case, it means it has become fixed. Dhruva also means becoming fixed, becoming steady, non-moving, and that is also the reference with respect to the pole star, because it's fixed, it's not non-moving. Therefore, the word dhruva is used. But here he's translating that dhruva as a what you call, my grammar is weak, but as an adjective, he's turning that into a proper noun. Anyways, he's taking one verse from one chapter, another half portion from another chapter, trying to make some, in Hindi we will call it jugad. Okay, just make it work, see if it works. Arundhati tatha pesha vasishta prashtata kruta from somewhere else, and dhruvam prajulitam goram apasavya pravartate from somewhere else. Arundhati has gone ahead of Vasishta, and he says Dhruva, the pole star blazing and fierce, is moving anti-clockwise. Guys, Dhruva is moving in a certain fashion, and that has not changed for thousands and thousands and millions of years. Okay, so what's such a big deal about it? And then he says Vasishta is a star measure of second magnitude, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so Arundhati has gone ahead of Vasishta. That translation is correct. Okay, now, does he show how Arundhati went ahead of Vasishta for his claim of 1478? Absolutely not. The only time in astronomy that after 15 years of research, guys, if it was that simple, I wouldn't have wasted my 15 years. Okay, Arundhati going ahead of Vasishta was considered next to impossible in the very order of nature by great astronomers, okay, of last 300, 500 years. Okay, so I was actually like a fool going after that verse, trying to prove it. And that's why it took 15 years. But actually I showed, and we will do a separate episode or series of episodes on that. So we'll not go there. So the point here is, now I'm just pulling this as a quick, I'm pulling this as a quick reference, like his summary. This is his summary, by the way, guys. Based on this, so there is no objective testing, there is no objective methodology that anyone can follow to say how Arundhati would have gone ahead of Vasishta in 1478 or 1493 or 1443, none. But then he has written lots of pages. I would encourage you to read that paper. It is available in public domain. And if you are in a university, you can easily pull that paper. Then he says from that, based on this, because he's so convinced about that 1478, that he fails to see that none of these astronomy evidence, or any evidence for that matter, but we have only discussed astronomy, matches for his date. So what does he say? Thus, I'll skip that half sentence. Thus, the above celestial statements, meaning all that was discussed, broadly match with 1493-1443 BCE period found previously for the eclipses and planetary positions stated in MB. Mahabharat. The statement in Ashwamedha Parvan about the stars starting from Shravishta or Dhanishta also points to the time when winter solstice synchronized with this star 1400 BCE. Guys, that's why we need to do another episode, at least just for that. Okay, so I will give you a hook for this and we will conclude here. So in the first paper, he claimed eclipses and planetary observations match for 1478. I am saying that statement is decisively false. Then in this statement, in this paper, he takes one reference from Bhishma Parva second, half portion of that reference, half portion of that verse, ignores the first half. Then he goes to another chapter, takes the one line, the first verse, first line of the shlok from another chapter, combines it with it. First thing, it's totally flawed, such a thing to do. But then, okay, so be my guest. Now, can you show me how this matches for 1478? The answer is nada. In fact, the Dhruva, the pole star blazing and fierce, guess what? In 1400 BCE, there is no distinct Dhruva, no distinct pole stars in the sky. In 1400 BCE, there is no distinct pole star in the sky, okay? And just to make it worse, I don't know, guys, how to explain it. I'm running out of words. The Dhruva, the word Dhruva here does not mean the pole star. It means fixed. And I'm going to show you on the next page, okay? And then the Arundhati going ahead of Vasishta can only be shown to be true sometime, anytime after 10,248 BCE. Guys, that's how precise and accurate Indian astronomy is, or astronomy as a science is. Arundhati walking ahead of Vasishtha can only be shown to be true from a time, anytime after 10,248 BCE and anytime before 4636 BC, 4636 BC. Only between 10,248, 4636 BCE, you can show Arundhati walking ahead of Vasishtha. 1400 is like 1,000 years removed after 4636 BCE, like 2,000, 3,000 years removed, and you cannot show it. Okay, and then mixing of this kind is wrong. Now I'll show you what that Dhruva actually means, and we'll stop. I showed this planetary position setup of Professor Iyengar last time. Okay, and then he says, oh yeah, you cannot trust this. Well, you can trust it. When I have shown this before partly, but when we do it again, focused on the planetary evidence, I'll show you how beautifully, just to the visual eyes, you can see each of these observation making sense. Okay, so the portion that he pulled this one liner from is here. Dhruvam prajvalito ghoram apasavya pravartate. It has nothing to do with the pole star. It has everything to do with the planet Mars. Chitra swatantare chaiva dhishtita parushograha vakranu vakram krutvam cha shravane pavaka prabha brahma rashim samavrutta lohitango vyavastita. That lohitango, okay, that is the what is it, red bodied planet, okay, like a molten iron, okay, that color. That is what is been given. This is the translation here. The translation is also wrong, by the way. That Brighton Dhruva, then he considers this is all about one planet Mars, but he thinks this is a pole star, this is another planet, then another planet, and then another planet. He thinks as if there are 4 planets. That is a decisively wrong translation. But again, let me repeat, if the translation is different, I have no problem with it. At least prima facie, I have no problem with it. But my friend, it's like, show me what do you mean by the rough planet, and show me that planet near Chitra and Swati in 1478. If you are saying the fire colored planet has gone retrograde near Shravana, that is not the true translation. But if you think that's the correct translation, show me a fire colored planet, or at least a planet going retrograde near Shravana. And then the red-bodied planet is in Brahma Rashi. Show me which red-bodied planet you have in mind. Okay, it cannot be Venus, it cannot be Jupiter. So either Mars or maybe Saturn, right? And show me that it is in the Brahma Rashi. Tell me what you mean by Brahma Rashi. The reason I'm saying this is because he has made a huge fuss in another discussion group. Okay, it is called Bharatiya Vidvat Parishad. Many Indologists are there from academia all over the world. And there he is disagreeing with my translation of Brahma Rashi, not from here, because he cannot, because the Brahma Rashi perfectly matches for my date. It doesn't match for his. He's claiming that my translation or my interpretation is wrong for Ramayana. That is for another day. But then he doesn't have his own interpretation for that Ramayana verse. And do you know what the Nyaya Darshana, the logical Darshana Grantha of India says? Nyaya Darshana. It says Swapratipaksha Sthapana Hino Vitanda. You're objecting to someone's position, but you do not have a alternate, independent own your position of your own, and you are still want to argue and still you want to fight. It is called vitanda. Okay, and in a debate rules, per the debate rules of the Nyaya Darshana, such a person is to be removed from the debate. Such a person is to be declared as defeated. That's what Nyaya Darshana says. I'm not using my language. Okay. All right. So next time what we're going to do, just one back, is that last one again he's saying, so far I showed you that whatever he has claimed, it doesn't match for 1478. He just made one more statement there. He says in Ashwamedha Parva, which is one of the Parva of Mahabharat, there is a reference to Shravishta or Nakshatra Dhanishta, and it points out to 1400 BCE. Okay, I'm going to show you how that is also decisively false. Okay, so next time, hopefully this is a part 3. By part 4, I know you may be tired of this just critiquing one particular claim or claim of one particular researcher. So hopefully we will conclude, but it's very fascinating. We can learn from people's failures. In fact, I'm very thankful to these individuals who have done the research before me, because first thing, they brought to my attention many things that I would have otherwise missed. but in their own ways, meaning they almost committed the errors for my benefit. So at least I knew what not to do. That is not to say that I'm not claiming that I don't make errors. Actually, I do. I do a lot of errors. Okay. In fact, Nyaya Darshana says pravartana lakshana dosha. Okay, only if somebody does something, then only there will be errors, because there are these other folks who are so fearful that they don't dare, do anything, or if they do it, they never claim as a very solid claim. They never assert anything. It's always like a loosey goosey, whatever you want to call it. Therefore, you can never call them wrong, because they will always say may, it appears, and stuff like that. So they never make a strong statement. Okay, it's important to make an assertion and be aware that you can be wrong. You can be wrong, and it's perfectly okay to be wrong in science. Okay, science has progressed, okay, by standing on the shoulders of others who made the mistakes before us. Quickly, these are the books in India. And this is if you are in India now, not many, but if you have your relatives, whatnot, the Yugadi offer, the new year. Okay, you must have thought, well, the new year was over January. Well, that's based on a Gregorian calendar. That's also new year. But on an Indian system, the Yugadi, the new year, will come in just few days. And if you are in India, this is only for offer for if you are in India. So maybe when you watch the YouTube. So you can get these all 4 books, my 3 books, plus another very exciting book. By the way, if you are in America, it is already available on Amazon, Shitara. Okay. It's a fascinating book. It's a very small book. It's a novelette, like novel, novella, and novelette by my good friend Mitra Desai. 10,000 words. You can finish it in 1 sitting or 1.5 sitting. I will call it jokingly, or 2 sittings, and you will love it. Okay, there is something that will fascinate you, something that will surprise you in that book, very much related to the medical science, and especially the kind of the nightmare of the COVID that we are going through. It has some relationship with the whole technology of vaccination, whole science of vaccination. Okay, so, and of course, if you're looking for my books in outside India through Amazon, and these are the covers. So Aditya ji, back to you.
What a fascinating presentation. And you covered, like, this is called Puru Paksha. Like when they say Jato Mat Tato Mat, like whatever you feel is the path, that is not a correct statement. Before that you started quoting Yad Yad Acharati Shrestha. So we should be humble enough to accept a Shrestha, because Gyan is like a flowing river, and it's always better to swim in the direction of the river. But not always. Sometimes it is okay, because to correct the river, you have to flow against it also. Because if the mythology is so prevalent, and what we are doing here is scientifically establishing the Purva Paksha based on somebody else's work. So which should be respected by everyone, because I feel if there is a more stronger logic, Nyaya, then it's better to accept them, like Vishwamitra and Vasishtha. Even though Vishwamitra struggled against Vasishtha, but at the end of the day, Vishwamitra accepted Vasishtha as a guru.
Correct.
And then
Vasishtha also accepted
Vishwamitra as a guru. Yes.
Place. Yeah, Vishwamitra's place.
So there was a system of giving each other respect based on whosoever understood it better. And that's Correct. How the knowledge grows. It's not a question of ego that I am right and I will always be right. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I make mistakes all the time. Like sometimes people ask me, have you made any errors, during your Indology research? And I said, how much time do you have? I can go through the list of them. And what happens is, as I said, we stand on the shoulders of the people who have done the work before us, irrespective of the age. Even it doesn't matter whether they are younger than you or older than you. Because they see, if they wouldn't have made the Mahabharata research, I mean, any research, it's not easy. People think it's like a plug and play. I mean, that's when I get tired, when I get these emails, people saying, Nileshji, I am doing research and I want to help you. And I really feel like saying, please, my dandavat, my namaskar to you, but please don't help me. Just do your research, do the publishing, do your publish, whatever it is. If it's interested, I will read it, but don't come after me, forcing me to read it. But I'm saying some of these people who actually go through this, Professor Iyengar, I'll say, he distinguishes himself from many other Mahabharata researchers in this particular way. And I'm not saying this because now I criticized him on so many things. I truly mean it, that he is very good at looking at the multiple manuscripts. Like for the same reference, he will look at the variations in the multiple manuscripts. He will put those together. He will write their translations. He will give the exact reference. Many people will just not do any of this. In Marathi saying, I don't know if you understand, but Aitya Bilavar Nagoba, you know, right? Somebody, the termites have built the house and the snake just comes and sit on it. You know, there are many researchers like that. They will essentially take somebody's claim. They will borrow somebody's claim. Okay, definitely Iyengarji puts a lot of effort in pulling the references at his age. I mean, 77. I mean, we have to respect the age too, by the way, I would say, you know, somebody who is very active at that age. And Parashar Tantra is his good work. I mean, I am benefiting from it. And so, yes, but we have to also show where the error is. That because that is not to put anybody down, but that is to ensure the growth of knowledge happens, and that is the very dharmic tradition.
One of the earlier shows you gave in the star position, at every star position you gave a shloka. That impressed me the most, because you had the position and you had a shloka you remembered, and you quoted on all the 30 positions.
Yeah. You know, we are going to do that sometime afterwards, by the way.
I can hear that
show why this is correct.
Just that part I heard at least 30 times. There must be 30 views from me on that particular part only.
Well, I did it just to impress you.
You don't have to do anything to impress me. You're already doing such a good job. And viewers, if you love this presentation, do subscribe and let us know your feedback. Your questions are important, and I think you have asked Nilesh ji to do some more topics, and I will share with him in private, and then we will come up with a plan, because we will come up with a different topic. But one thing is sure, the Lanka is in the middle of the ocean. That's even now I have now come to that conclusion, because Ravana says it, Kharadushan says, there are many, at least 12 references I collected.
Yeah, and I'll add, Krishna's Dwarka was also in the middle of the ocean.
Correct.
Okay, the current Dwarka is, of course, we need at a place where we can go. But Krishna's Dwarka that was flooded and destroyed was also in the middle of the ocean.
That is also mentioned over there. You have to cross the ocean to reach there. And Nauka Vihar, Yantra Yukta Nauka, these are all very current concepts in that time. Motorboat is not invented today.
Correct.
Motorboat was existing today also, yesterday also, and in that time also. But anyway, thank you, Nilesh ji, as usual. Very enjoying. And for me, it's a great learning experience also. So whatever adjectives I use for Nilesh ji are reserved for him. So I have not used that adjective against for anyone else. So please.
Now you will be in trouble. So.
All right. Thank you and namaskar.
Thank you.